Does Cleveland rock? Thousands of protesters and delegates are taking over the city next week for the Republican National Convention. The strategy to avoid rowdy demonstrations before Donald Trump's big night.
God, I love this city. When I die, I want to be reborn here.
The love fest between San Diego and Vice President Biden and his aggressive stand on global trade enforcement. Plus, an investment in sunshine paying off for wineries in the Empire State. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The Port of San Diego is ahead of the curve for the shipping industry. It served as the backdrop for Vice President Joe Biden's visit today. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy explains how San Diego will make a difference in the global trade economy.
Vice President Joe Biden talked to about 100 port workers and community members here at the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal. This is the center of San Diego's shipping industry, where 1 million tons of cargo is handled every year, from bananas to fertilizer to cement. It also serves the military as needed. Biden told the crowd today San Diego is ahead of the curve when it comes to the trade industry.
The fact of the matter is that right here in San Diego, that dynamism flows through this port. 58,000 direct and indirect jobs related to this port. As the chairman pointed out, nearly $8 billion in economic activity, not just for the companies involved in trade, but for businesses and workers, from customers, from local diners to gas stations to hotels. It's all across the region.
Biden also talked about aggressive global trade enforcement and announced a 13th case of trade violations filed against China. He says it's essential to keep the competition fair so that American businesses are not put at a disadvantage.
There's a lot at stake. We need to sell to customers abroad. 95% of the world's customers are over there. They're beyond our shores. 95% of the world's customers. We have the best products in the world. So we have to make sure they have equal access, both here and abroad. Export support, 10 million jobs today.
A proposed $24 million renovation of the 10th Avenue Terminal is under review. The goal is to expand it and create more jobs. Reporting from the Port of San Diego, I'm Susan Murphy for KPBS News.
Republican presidential presumptive nominee Donald Trump is in town and is looking to raise money. The event organizer says the Rancho Santa Fe fundraiser is expected to raise $4 million. The event at the Del Mar Country Club will be attended by about 50 people. It's the candidate's first San Diego event since May 27th, when his appearance at the convention center was followed by protests and clashes with local police. There are no scheduled public appearances set in San Diego. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is seeking $10 million in damages from a former member of his staff. Sam Nunberg was his senior campaign consultant. Trump alleges he leaked confidential information to the press, which breaches a non-disclosure agreement. Nunberg denies the accusation and says it is an attempt to bully him into silence after publicly supporting the presidential bid of Texas Senator Ted Cruz. A new motion could reveal more details about the legal fight connected to Trump University. U.S. District Judge Gonzalo Curiel says he will take a request to release video depositions of presumptive Republican presidential nominee in a class action lawsuit against Trump and his now defunct university. Trump attorneys are worried the videos would hurt his campaign. The lawsuit accuses Trump and Trump University of deceptive practices and scamming thousands of students who enrolled, thinking it would make them rich in the real estate market. Cleveland is bracing for Trump-sized protests at next week's Republican National Convention. Associated Press reporter David Martin explains how the city is trying to avoid the chaos that has followed the Republican presidential hopeful.
The recent violence in Baton Rouge and Dallas has shocked the nation and is causing concern. Protests at the Republican National Convention could descend into chaos. Thousands of protesters and delegates are expected to flood into Cleveland, where Donald Trump will accept the Republican nomination.
We have planned, we have what if, we have tabletop this from day one to yesterday. And everything that can and will happen, we have planned for.
Cleveland police say they've ramped up convention security even further following the Dallas police shooting. Security expert Tim Dimmoff says Donald Trump's polarizing nature could set the stage for clashes.
The radical protest groups in the United States are coming to Cleveland RNC, and those groups are going to pose a very significant type of aggressive behavior, aggressive protest, and they're really going to be the ones that put the gasoline on the fire.
The city of Cleveland tried to severely limit protester access to the convention area, but recently had to walk back many of the restrictions after the ACLU sued the city, claiming they were violating protesters' First Amendment rights.
I feel like we're dealing with a grade C police department when what you need in times like this is an A+ police department.
Deb Klein is an organizer for the left-leaning Cleveland Jobs for Justice. They've been granted a permit to protest, but it's 2 miles away from the RNC in an abandoned lot.
I think this convention is going to be like no other that we've ever seen, and I'm a little fearful because of some of the groups that we're hearing in advance that are coming in that are all pro-Trump.
As lead Ohio organizer for Citizens for Trump, Ralph King worries some anti-Trump groups are coming to Cleveland looking for a fight.
We will not encourage any confrontation. We will try to diffuse any confrontation, but we're not going to ask anybody, to sit there and take a beating.
Despite the fears of many, almost everyone in Cleveland points to the Cavaliers' victory parade last month as how smoothly Cleveland can handle a major event. But that was a unifying celebration, and for many, Trump's nomination is anything but, leaving fear that what started in Chicago, Albuquerque, and Anaheim could erupt in Cleveland. David Martin, The Associated Press.
President Obama is working to keep the discussion open about race, policing, and ways to handle tension following last week's police shootings of black men in Louisiana and Minnesota and the sniper attack in Dallas. Faith, law enforcement, and elected leaders from around the country came together in Washington for the meeting that will discuss those recent events, as well as questions that the White House says have bubbled to the surface and that our country has been grappling with for generations. Another attack on a homeless man this morning, this time possibly with a hammer. It happened in the East Village section of downtown San Diego. Police are still checking surveillance video that may have captured an image of the attacker. The victim told police a man on a blue bike struck him. Now, the San Diego Police Department announced on Twitter that they don't believe this morning's attack is related to the recent series of attacks on the homeless. California will have a long ballot in November. Voters will have 17 propositions to consider. One of them, Proposition 57, aims to reduce the state's prison population. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is joining a statewide campaign against a ballot measure.
Proposition 57 would give some nonviolent felons an early chance at parole if they go through rehabilitation programs. Faulconer says he agrees the state should reduce the prison population and encourage criminals to become productive members of society. But he said this measure is misguided and would threaten public safety.
Prop 57 significantly undermines more than 4 decades of criminal justice policies approved by the legislature and California voters that were designed to enhance public safety and protect the rights of crime victims.
Joining the No on 57 campaign could raise the Republican mayor's profile across the state. It's already fueled speculation that he wants to run for governor in 2018. Faulconer has repeatedly said he has no such plans. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A rescue team was dispatched to Del Mar after a section of the bluffs collapsed onto the beach. Dispatchers say giant piles of rubble dropped at about 8:15 this morning at the foot of 10th Street. The area is a popular jogging spot, and officials have determined that no one was injured, and search dogs did not find anyone trapped under the rubble. There may be more fallout from a controversial leadership shakeup in the California Coastal Commission. The group has been under a legislative microscope in the months since board members voted to fire former head Charles Lester. The State Department of Finance plans to audit the commission's fiscal management and internal controls. This follows an emergency general fund loan last month, adding up to more than $1 million. This covered agency payroll and other obligations. This marks the second year that the commission needed financial help from the state. A temporary park in downtown San Diego has been open for just over a year. It was built on city-owned land to make use of a vacant lot. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser says now the park may be replaced by a high-rise condominium complex.
Courtyard is very much a community-built project.
Philip Ocketel transformed an empty lot at the corner of Park and Market Streets into an urban park. He started the project called Courtyard with a Q 3 years ago as an architecture student.
There we're looking at publicly owned land and how we could start activating vacant publicly owned land.
The East Village Park has been popular, sometimes attracting more than 1,000 people to concerts, markets, and other events. It also has a coffee shop, restaurant, and beer garden, and dog park.
It's taken off, I think, a lot more than any of us could have anticipated, and I think it's had more of an impact on the neighbourhood and the community, I think, than any of us could have even thought possible.
The city of San Diego owns the lot, and now the city plans to sell the space. Courtyard has a lease through next July.
But depending on what happens with the development, we could be kicked off sooner.
A developer wants to build a 34-story condo complex in the space. It would house more than 400 units and have 600 parking spaces. Community members have organized a petition to save the park. Ocketel says he always knew the park would be temporary. It's designed that way. Its buildings are made of shipping containers that can be picked up and moved. But he hoped to be in the space longer.
You know, we knew this day was eventually going to come, but I think it's just raised a big question of, are people ready for that to happen yet?
If Courtyard does have to move, Ocketel hopes to find another spot in the East Village.
Does the community still have some sort of a backyard to hang out?
The proposed condo complex is being reviewed by the city's development nonprofit, Civic San Diego, and the Downtown Community Planning Council. Until a project is approved, Courtyard remains open for visitors. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Researchers revealed nearly 20 countries are at some risk of a Zika outbreak following the Olympics. Yemen at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, Chad, Djibouti, and Eritrea in Africa are at substantially higher risk. Scientists say these countries have the right conditions for outbreaks. CDC researchers made their predictions based on a range of factors, including air travel patterns between Brazil and other countries and the presence of a tropical mosquito that is the main way Zika spreads to people. Sunny skies and warm weather on tap for San Diego this week. Heather Waldman says drier air is expected for Southern California. That's tonight on the KPBS Weather Report.
Not even a whisper of clouds or wet weather across the southwestern U.S. Instead, big area of high pressure over the Four Corners, keeping things pretty dry, even in the deserts where we would at least expect the monsoonal moisture this time of the year. Nothing's showing up. There are some showers in far northern parts of the Rockies, but not going to see any of that rain here, at least not anytime soon. Tonight in the metro area, temperatures nice and comfortable in the mid-60s. Even though we're not expecting rain, we'll still expect those typical clouds to move in late tonight. Right along the coast could be some areas of poor visibility waking up on Thursday morning. Otherwise, Thursday afternoon looking pretty nice. We'll get to that extended forecast for the region in just a little bit. Here's the rest of Southern California, San Diego County through tonight. Temperatures will be in the lower 50s in Ramona, 55 in Alpine, low 50s in Mount Laguna. Borrego Springs, a bit warmer there as you go out towards the deserts, middle 60s. Mecca stays in the 70s. Coastal areas, as those clouds drift in, going to keep in a little bit more of the warmth, so temperatures will stay in the lower to middle 60s to start off your day on Thursday. Here's the setup on Thursday. Believe it or not, a west wind off the Pacific usually does have drier air, especially at mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. Enough moisture at the surface, of course, to lead to those coastal clouds. But through the afternoon, continuing to see more sunshine, Bright sunny skies for Vegas and Phoenix, where again we have that big area of high pressure set up, and that's going to keep things very dry, not just through this week, but into next week as well. That high is going to shift a little bit farther to the east, but still a southerly breeze behind it will keep things very toasty. We'll have to watch for some pop-up showers into the deserts, but otherwise things stay very typical in our immediate backyard in Southern California. Temperatures generally in the 70s by day at the coast, 90s and triple digits as you go inland. Here's that forecast for coastal towns. Temperatures mid to upper 70s all the way through this weekend into Monday. We'll see a fair bit of cloud cover during the next couple of mornings, but generally sunny this weekend. I'd say it's great weather to go outside. Overnight lows will be in the lower to middle 60s. A little bit inland, just a few degrees warmer and generally sunnier. Even if we do get those clouds, the sunshine does return a bit earlier. Temperatures will be in the mid to upper 60s overnight. And as we work our way into the mountains, a bit warmer still. Temperatures still very nice. Mid to upper 80s. We'll reach 90 by Monday with a mix of clouds and some sunshine. Low to mid 50s expected at night. So a bigger temperature difference here where the air is a little bit drier. Deserts especially. We'll be starting our days off in the 60s and low 70s, but climbing up close to that 110-degree mark. Heat that we're used to for sure this time of the year. Heather Waldman, KPBS News.
So what would happen to Mission Bay in the case of an oil spill? That is the hypothesis being tested by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're conducting an oil spill deployment drill near the entrance of the bay, testing booming strategies to protect habitat in the bay and the mouth of the San Diego River. The effectiveness of the 800-foot containment boom will depend on tidal patterns, currents, as well as weather conditions. Activists from farm communities protested outside of the California Department of Pesticide Regulation in Sacramento, demanding state regulation on pesticide applications near schools, daycare centers, and bus stops and routes. Those behind the rally say pesticide use near schools disproportionately affects Hispanic children. Charlotte Fedipi is spokeswoman for the Department of Pesticide Regulation, and she says the agency will be releasing a draft regulation by the end of the summer. Protesters say the state was supposed to release the proposed rules back in February. The state is tightening its financial belt even as Governor Jerry Brown passed the largest budget in California history. The state controller says tax revenues fell short of expectations for the third month in a row in June. Revenues were off by 3.1%.
We're in the third straight month where our total revenues fell short of our expectations, but in terms of the fiscal year, total revenues still outpaced the projections that were made in the 2015-16 budget.
Shortfalls in June are largely due to low corporation and sales taxes. California educators are launching new parent and teacher resources to help understand Common Core aligned tests. More than 3 million parents and students are receiving student test scores in the mail from Smarter Balanced tests in math and English. It's the second year of Smart Balanced testing for students in third to 8th and 11th grade. The new resources are meant to help parents understand the scores.
First things we've did is a video that is available on our website that walks a parent through the report that they will be receiving in the mail from the districts. So that video is in both English and Spanish, and a parent could watch that video to better understand that report they're going to get.
And officials say more information about Smart Balance testing can be found at testscoreguide.org. It's standing tall and proud. San Diego State University held its 9th annual Pride flag raising ceremony today. The celebration took place at the Aztec Student Union and only 4 days away from San Diego Pride Parade. The parade will be held at 11 a.m. this Saturday in Hillcrest.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, our series, The End of AIDS, travels to New York, where there are more people with HIV than anywhere in the country. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
The calorie count may be coming soon to a beer label near you. The group that represents major brewers is pushing for more information on labels. The Beer Institute wants members to reveal more details, including ingredients, carbohydrates, fat and alcohol by volume. It is seeking compliance for voluntary disclosure by the end of 2020. The Brewers Association, a trade association of craft brewers, says compliance might be difficult for microbrewers. 5 fire stations in the North County Fire Protection District are now running entirely on solar electricity. Fire Station 5 in Bonsall is the latest facility to convert to solar. The North County Fire Protection District serves about 50,000 residents in the communities of Fallbrook, Bonsall, and Rainbow. The projects are funded through a loan from the California Energy Commission's Energy Assistance Conservation Act. The fire district says they have a combined projected energy savings of more than $65,000 a year. Well, you can sip it, swirl it, and reap the benefits of a solar switch. The Finger Lakes wine country in New York is shifting to clean energy. In tonight's Innovation Trail report, Sasha Ann Simon says more financing options have encouraged wineries to take a chance on debt to make a difference with production.
We had, it was like 61% of our production use is generated by solar.
Chris Stamp of Lakewood Vineyards in New York's Finger Lakes area says his winery was ahead of the curve when they installed a 47-kilowatt solar energy system 4 years ago. You may not notice them at first, but those panels marked a change in the region.
We produced 54,398 kilowatt hours last year.
Solar energy is an investment, and more businesses are starting to see it that way. But going green comes with its share of challenges. Solar power requires a long-term commitment before you start seeing savings.
When our peak usage is going on, we're using all of that electricity we're producing. If things are a little slower and we're not using as much electricity, like I'm not refrigerating things, then a lot more of it's going back on the grid. Does it make a huge difference in the bill? It helps. And this is our small one. We got a much bigger one back here.
Stamp thinks it'll take somewhere between 9 and 12 years before the solar panels start to pay for themselves. It was a grant from New York State Energy Research and Development Authority and a 30% federal tax credit that helped the company front the initial cost of the more than 140 panels.
That's certified organic produce that my brother and his wife do. And then if you look up that way, you can see the tasting room and the winery building.
About 30 miles northwest, at Hunt Country Vineyards in Branchport, New York, solar panels spread across the roof of a number of buildings on the property. Today, more residents and businesses in the Finger Lakes region are finding that it's well worth it to go green. Suzanne Hunt is part of the 7 generations of family members who have worked at the farm. She also heads an advisory firm that's on a mission to help other businesses that also want in on helping the environment.
Switching off of dependency on fossil fuels helps us become part of a solution.
According to Finger Lakes Wine Country Tourism Marketing Association, the region is home to just over 100 of the more than 400 wineries in New York State. And with more ways to pay, such as bank loans and leases, Hunt says more than 15% of Finger Lakes wineries have chosen to take on the debt to make a difference.
In 10 or 15 years, they'll have to replace the inverters, but you factor that in and you plan for that, and you basically have a pretty minimal electric bill.
Governor Andrew Cuomo has long pushed for New Yorkers to be mindful of the way they consume energy. The state is committed to reaching an ambitious goal: 50% of its energy coming from renewable sources by the year 2030. Various solar projects are underway in local communities across the state. Jim Treesize, president of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, says the numbers will multiply faster than we can expect.
I think that the technology and the realization that you can do solar in New York. I mean, we used to think of Arizona as solar, not New York. It's success-driven, meaning that one winery will see another winery that's adopted it and then learn about it and say, oh yeah, I know, number one, I'm doing good and I can save money over the long haul.
Aside from running into the occasional unethical installer who might provide panels of bad quality, Hunt says the challenges she has seen are minimal. She wants more people to join the movement and hopes to dispel some of the myths about solar power. Meanwhile, Stamp says he never bought into the myths. The decision to go solar was purely an ecological one. And if he has his way, workers will install more panels once Lakewood's expansion is complete this summer.
we don't do everything to make money here. Some things we do just because they feel right, you know.
For the Innovation Trail, I'm Sasha Ann Simons.
And this Innovation Trail report was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, the California Transportation Commission is in the process of conducting a pay-by-the-mile pilot study to find an answer to declining gas tax revenues. The other signs that the state's gas tax is not providing enough money to fix roads. And on Midday Edition, the Golden State has some of the most progressive laws to combat climate change. We'll check in with the people who are taking a closer look at how low-income communities of color are affected by global warming. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. And as always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That's where you'll find photos of reporters and producers in the field and catch all the behind-the-scenes action in the newsroom. Thanks for joining us from all of us here at KPBS. Have a great evening. Good night.